10 years. That's how long Lucas Bennett wore a wedding ring for a woman who vanished without a trace. Now she's sitting across from him in a cafe, not as the girl he married, but as Victoria Hale, a billionaire whose face graces magazine covers worldwide. Her designer suit probably costs more than his mortgage, but none of that wealth can answer the one question burning in his chest. Why did you abandon our daughter? Victoria's hands tremble. The composed businesswoman cracks. And when she finally speaks, her answer destroys everything he believed about that night she disappeared. Before we dive into this story, hit that like button and drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. Now, let's begin. The coffee in Lucas's cup had gone cold 20 minutes ago. He hadn't touched it, couldn't. His hands were too busy gripping the edge of the table like it was the only thing keeping him anchored to reality. Across from him sat a stranger wearing a familiar face. Victoria Hale. That's what the world called her now. Not Victoria Bennett. Not Vicky. Not the woman who used to steal his hoodies and fall asleep during movies with her head on his shoulder. The woman sitting across from him wore a charcoal blazer that probably cost more than his truck, her dark hair pulled back in a style that screamed boardroom and power lunches. But her eyes, those were the same, brown with flecks of gold that caught the light just right. The same eyes that used to look at him like he hung the moon. Those eyes were killing him right now. You look good, Victoria said quietly. Lucas almost laughed. Almost. Don't what? Don't do that. Don't sit there and make small talk like we're old friends catching up. His voice came out harder than he intended, but he didn't care. You don't get to do that. Victoria's jaw tightened. She looked down at her own untouched coffee. Some fancy thing with oat milk that the barista had written her name on. Victoria, not Vicky. The cafe hummed with afternoon noise around them. College students typing on laptops. A mom trying to keep her toddler from knocking over a display of travel mugs. Normal people living normal lives. Nothing about this was normal. I know you're angry, Victoria started. Angry? Lucas leaned forward, his voice dropping to something dangerous. Angry is what I felt when you didn't show up for Arya's second birthday. Angry is what I felt when I had to explain to a 4-year-old why mommy wasn't coming home. What I feel now? I don't even have a word for it. Victoria flinched. Good. He wanted her to flinch. I didn't ask you here to fight, she said. Then why am I here, Victoria? He said her full name like a weapon. Because your assistant's email was pretty vague. Ms. Hale would like to meet regarding a personal matter. Real personal, considering you've been gone for a decade. I wanted to explain. Explain. Lucas sat back, crossing his arms. You've had 10 years to explain. 10 years to pick up a phone. Send a letter. Literally anything. But now that you're some big-shot billionaire, now you want to explain? He'd looked her up, of course. After that email came through, he'd spent an entire night scrolling through articles about Victoria Hale's meteoric rise in the tech industry. Forbes features. TED Talks. Profiles in magazines that called her a visionary, a disruptor, a force of nature. They didn't mention that she was also a mother who walked away. Victoria's hands were clasped so tightly, her knuckles had gone white. I know this is... You don't know anything. Lucas's voice cracked. He hated that. Hated that after all this time she could still get to him. You don't know what it was like. You weren't there. I know. Do you? He was gripping the table again. Do you know what it's like to wake up and find your wife gone? No note. No explanation. Just gone. Do you know what it's like to file a missing persons report while your 6-month-old daughter screams in the next room? To watch cops search your house like maybe you did something to her? Victoria's composure was cracking now, really cracking. Her eyes were glassy. Do you know what it's like? Lucas continued, his voice getting quieter, more dangerous. To explain to your daughter over and over and over that mommy didn't leave because of her? To watch her blame herself anyway? To see her draw pictures in kindergarten of our family with you scribbled out? A tear slid down Victoria's cheek. She didn't wipe it away. I looked for you, Lucas said. For 2 years I looked. Hired a private investigator I couldn't afford. Put up flyers. Checked hospitals and morgues and homeless shelters. I thought you were dead, Victoria. I mourned you. Arya mourned you. And the whole time you were, what, Building an empire? It wasn't like that. Then what was it like? He slammed his hand on the table, drawing looks from nearby tables. He didn't care. Tell me. Make me understand how you could just vanish. How you could leave our baby and never look back. Victoria was crying openly now, but she held his gaze. That was something, at least. She didn't look away. I looked for you too, she said quietly. Lucas blinked. What? After. Years later, I looked for you. Her voice was steady despite the tears. I knew where you were. I knew about the business. About Arya, I've known for a long time. The words hit him like a physical blow. You knew where we were? Yes. And you still didn't come back? No. Lucas stood up so fast his chair scraped loudly against the floor. Several people turned to stare. He didn't sit back down. I'm done here. Lucas, please. No. He grabbed his jacket from the back of the chair. I don't know what game you're playing, but I'm not interested. You made your choice 10 years ago. Live with it. She deserves to know the truth. Lucas froze, his jacket halfway on. Slowly, he turned back around. Victoria was standing now too, her careful composure completely shattered. Tears streaked her face, ruining whatever expensive makeup she'd probably had professionally applied that morning. What did you just say? Arya, Victoria whispered. She deserves to know the truth about why I left. Don't you dare say her name. Lucas's voice was pure ice. You don't get to say her name. You don't get to pretend you care about what she deserves. I'm her mother. You were her mother, past tense. Lucas shoved his arms through his jacket sleeves. You lost that right when you walked away. I didn't walk away because I stopped loving her. The cafe had gone quiet. Everyone was definitely staring now. Lucas didn't care. He was shaking from rage or pain or some toxic combination of both. Then why? His voice broke on the question. Why, Victoria? If you loved her so much, why did you leave? Victoria sank back into her chair like her legs couldn't hold her anymore. She pressed her palms against her eyes, shoulders shaking with silent sobs. Lucas stood there, torn between storming out and sitting back down. The ring on his finger, the one he'd never taken off, felt suddenly heavy. Finally, Victoria looked up at him. Her face was blotchy and red, all that billionaire polish stripped away. She looked young again, vulnerable. Like the girl he'd married in a courthouse ceremony because they couldn't afford anything fancier. Sit down, she said quietly. Please, just sit down and let me explain, and then if you want to leave, I won't stop you. Lucas didn't move. I don't want your explanations. I know, but I'm going to give you one anyway. She wiped her face with the back of her hand, smearing mascara. Because Arya deserves more than the version of this story you've been telling her. She deserves the truth, and so do you. What truth? That you're a coward who ran away when things got hard? That I was sick? Victoria's voice was steady now, almost eerily calm. That I was so sick I was dangerous. That leaving wasn't about stopping loving you. It was about stopping myself from hurting her. Lucas felt his knees go weak. He grabbed the back of the chair to steady himself. What are you talking about? Victoria gestured to the seat across from her. Sit down, Lucas. Please. Against every instinct screaming at him to walk away, Lucas sat. They stared at each other across the table. The noise of the cafe slowly resumed around them, people returning to their conversations and laptops, the moment of drama apparently over. Victoria took a shaky breath. After Arya was born, something broke inside me. Lucas opened his mouth, but she held up a hand. Let me finish. Please. I need to get this out while I still can. She wrapped her hands around her cold coffee cup like it could anchor her. Everyone talks about postpartum depression like it's just being sad, tired, overwhelmed. And maybe for some people it is. But for me, it was like drowning, like being trapped underwater and watching the surface get farther and farther away. Her voice was detached, clinical, like she was describing someone else's life. I couldn't sleep, and I don't mean normal new mom tired. I mean, I literally couldn't sleep. I would lie there for hours, staring at the ceiling, convinced that if I closed my eyes, something terrible would happen. That Arya would stop breathing, that someone would break in, that the house would catch fire. Lucas felt something uncomfortable twist in his chest, a memory trying to surface. I remember you being tired, he said slowly. But I thought, we had a newborn. Everyone's tired. I know. Victoria's smile was bitter. I got very good at hiding it, at pretending I was fine when you asked, at waiting until you left for work to fall apart. Why didn't you tell me? Because I didn't understand what was happening. I thought I was just bad at this, at being a mother. Everyone else seemed to handle it fine, so it had to be me, something wrong with me. She was crying again, quieter this time. And then the thoughts started. Lucas's stomach dropped. What thoughts? Victoria's hands were shaking so badly she had to set down the coffee cup. Intrusive thoughts, the doctors called them later. Violent, horrible images that would just appear in my head. Me dropping Arya down the stairs, holding her under the bathwater, putting a pillow over her face while she slept. Jesus Christ, Victoria. I didn't want to think those things. Her voice cracked. I loved her so much it physically hurt. I would hold her and cry because I couldn't believe something so perfect had come from me. And then my brain would show me these pictures of hurting her, and I would hate myself. I thought I was a monster. Lucas felt sick. He remembered those early months, remembered coming home from trying to save his failing business to find Victoria holding Arya with this strange, intense expression on her face. He thought she was just tired, overwhelmed. He'd had no idea. The worst part, Victoria continued, her voice barely above a whisper, was that I started to believe I might actually do it. Not on purpose. But what if I fell asleep and dropped her? What if I had one of those thoughts while I was giving her a bath and my body just acted? What if I was so tired I couldn't trust myself? You should have told me, Lucas said, his voice thick. We could have gotten you help. Could we? Victoria looked at him with eyes full of old pain. You were working 70-hour weeks trying to keep the business afloat. We barely had enough money for rent, let alone therapy. And I was so ashamed, Lucas. So convinced that if I just tried harder, if I just loved her more, it would go away. But it didn't. No, it got worse. She wiped her eyes again. I started researching ways to make sure she'd be safe. From me. I looked into adoption, foster care. I even drove to a fire station once with her in the car seat, thinking I could just leave her there. Someone would take care of her. Someone better than me. Lucas felt like he couldn't breathe. But you didn't. I couldn't. Every time I tried, I would look at her and think that giving her away would destroy me. But keeping her felt like I was putting her in danger. Victoria laughed, a broken sound. So I was trapped. Damned if I stayed, damned if I left. What changed? Victoria met his eyes. You did. What? You came home early one day, remember? You'd forgotten some paperwork. And you found me in the nursery, just standing over her crib, watching her sleep. I'd been standing there for hours, frozen, terrified to touch her, terrified to leave her. Lucas did remember that day. He'd thought Victoria looked strange, disconnected, but she'd smiled when she saw him and said something about just watching the baby sleep. He'd kissed her forehead and grabbed his papers and left. You looked at me, Victoria said, and you asked if I was okay. And I wanted to tell you, I opened my mouth to tell you everything. But then you said you had to get back to a meeting that could save the business. And I saw how tired you were, how much pressure you were under. And I couldn't add to that. So you just left. Not right away. I made it through that day, and the next, and the next. I kept thinking tomorrow I'll feel better. Tomorrow I'll tell him. Tomorrow I'll ask for help. Her voice was getting quieter. But then one night I was giving Arya a bath, and she was splashing and smiling, being perfect. And suddenly I had this thought, so vivid it felt real, of her slipping under the water, of me just watching, of not pulling her out. Lucas felt tears on his own face now. And I realized I couldn't trust myself anymore. Not for another day. Not for another hour. So after you fell asleep that night, I packed a bag. I drove to a psychiatric hospital 3 hours away, and I checked myself in. For 10 years? Lucas's voice was raw. You were in a hospital for 10 years? No. Victoria shook her head. 2 years, on and off. Inpatient treatment, then outpatient, then intensive therapy. They diagnosed me with postpartum psychosis, severe depression, anxiety. They put me on medication, taught me coping mechanisms. Slowly, I started to feel human again. And then? And then I couldn't come back. She said it simply, like it was obvious. 2 years had passed. You'd clearly moved on. I'd checked, seen you were managing, seen that Arya was healthy and happy. I'd convinced myself you were better off without me, that showing up would just hurt everyone more. So you built a tech empire instead? Victoria's laugh was hollow. I needed to do something, to prove I wasn't just the woman who abandoned her family. The therapist said I was trying to outrun my guilt. She was probably right. She looked down at her hands. Every deal I closed, every million I made, I thought maybe this will be enough. Maybe this will make me feel like less of a failure as a mother. It never did. They sat in silence. The cafe had fully returned to normal now, the drama forgotten. Just two people having an intense conversation, could be a breakup, could be anything. No one cared. Why now? Lucas finally asked. Why reach out after all this time? Victoria pulled something from her purse, a magazine. She slid it across the table. It was folded open to a feature story. Local teen wins state science fair with revolutionary water purification design. There was a photo. Arya smiling proudly next to her project, her hair pulled back in a ponytail. She looked so much like Victoria, it hurt. I saw this 2 months ago, Victoria said. I've been following her life from a distance for years, social media, school websites, anything public. But seeing her picture in a magazine, reading about how brilliant she is, how kind, her voice broke. I couldn't stay away anymore. I've missed so much already. And I know I don't deserve a place in her life. I know that. But I couldn't die without at least trying to explain, to apologize. You think an apology fixes this? No. Victoria looked at him with absolute certainty. Nothing fixes this. But she deserves to know the truth. She deserves to know that I didn't leave because she wasn't enough, that I left because I was broken, and I thought leaving was the only way to keep her safe. Lucas stared at the photo of his daughter. Their daughter. She'd asked about Victoria less and less over the years, but he knew the questions were still there, buried, but there. She thinks you didn't want her, he said quietly. No matter how many times I told her it wasn't her fault, she thinks there was something wrong with her that made you leave. Victoria made a sound like she'd been punched. She has your smile, Lucas continued, still looking at the photo. Your stubbornness. Your brain. She tested into the gifted program in 3rd grade. Skipped 5th grade entirely. She wants to be an engineer. Sometimes when she's working on a problem, she gets this look on her face, this intense concentration, and it's like seeing you. Lucas, she needed you. He finally looked up. All those times she was sick, all those school plays and soccer games and science fairs, all those nights she cried because other kids had moms and she didn't. She needed you and you weren't there. I know. Being sick doesn't change that. I know. Victoria's face was wet again. I know it doesn't. But it's the truth, and she deserves to hear it from me. Not as an excuse, just as what happened. Lucas was quiet for a long time. The ring on his finger caught the light, simple gold, worn smooth from years of wearing it. He told himself he kept it on because he'd never bothered to take it off. But that was a lie. He kept it on because some part of him had never stopped hoping for an explanation that made sense, that turned his wife back into a victim of circumstance instead of someone who chose to abandon them. And now here was that explanation. Mental illness. Postpartum psychosis. Fear of hurting their daughter. Should have made him feel better. It didn't. I don't know if I can forgive you, he said finally. I'm not asking you to. And I don't know if I can let you meet her. She's finally okay, Victoria. She's happy, stable, doing well in school. What if seeing you ruins that? That's your decision to make. I won't fight you on it. Victoria started gathering her things, her purse, her untouched coffee. But I need you to think about something. What? She stood, looking down at him with those eyes that used to see right through him. One day, Arya's going to ask you why you kept us apart, and you'll have to decide whether the truth that you were protecting her is going to be enough, or whether she'll wonder what might have been different if she'd gotten to make that choice herself. Lucas felt anger flare again. Don't try to manipulate me. I'm not. I'm just, Victoria sighed. I'm just saying that I was sick, Lucas, but I'm not anymore. And whether or not that matters is up to you. But she's 14. She's not a baby. She's smart enough to understand complex things. Maybe she's smart enough to understand this too. She pulled out a business card and set it on the table. My number, email. If you decide she should know the truth, contact me. If you don't, I'll respect that. I won't reach out again. Just like that? Just like that. Victoria picked up her purse. I've already stolen 10 years from you both. I won't steal her peace, too. She turned to leave, got 3 steps away, then stopped. Without turning around, she said, For what it's worth, you were always a good father. I knew you would be. It's the only thing that made leaving possible, knowing she had you. Then she walked out of the cafe. Lucas sat there for a long time, staring at the business card. Victoria Hale, CEO. 3 different phone numbers. An email address. The photo of Arya smiled up at him from the magazine. His phone buzzed. Text from his mom. Picking Arya up from robotics club. Want me to keep her for dinner? Lucas looked at the ring on his finger. At the business card. At his daughter's face. Then he picked up the card and put it in his wallet. He didn't know what he was going to do yet, but he knew this conversation wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Lucas didn't go straight home. He drove around for 2 hours, taking random turns through neighborhoods he barely recognized, the business card burning a hole in his wallet. His hands gripped the steering wheel so tight his knuckles ached, and twice he had to pull over because his vision blurred with tears he refused to let fall. Postpartum psychosis. The words kept echoing in his head like a record stuck on repeat. He'd heard of postpartum depression before. Everyone had. But psychosis? Intrusive thoughts about hurting the baby? That was something else entirely. Something he should have noticed, should have seen, except he hadn't. He'd been so buried in trying to save his failing business, so focused on making sure they had enough money for diapers and formula, that he'd missed his wife literally losing her mind. What kind of husband did that make him? What kind of father? By the time he pulled into his driveway, it was past 7. The lights were on inside. His mom must have brought Arya home already. He sat in the truck for a minute, staring at the house he'd bought 3 years ago when the business finally turned around. Nothing fancy, but it was theirs. A real yard for Arya. A garage for his tools. Enough space that they didn't feel cramped. The front door opened. His mother, Janet, stood silhouetted in the doorway, her arms crossed. Great. Lucas got out of the truck and headed up the walk. You look like hell, Janet said by way of greeting. Good to see you too, Mom. She didn't move from the doorway. Where were you? Out. For 6 hours? Lucas sighed. Can we not do this right now? Arya's worried, said you were supposed to pick her up from robotics at 5. Janet's voice had that edge it got when she was working herself up to a lecture. You never just forget to pick her up, Lucas. What's going on? Nothing. I lost track of time. Bullshit. But Mom, don't mom me. I raised you. I know when you're lying. She finally stepped aside to let him in. And you've been weird for the past week, ever since that email. Lucas froze halfway through the door. What email? The one you printed out and then threw away. The one I saw in the trash when I was helping Arya with the recycling. Janet shut the door behind him. From some assistant about a meeting. Of course she'd seen it. Nothing got past his mother. It was nothing, Lucas said. Was it about her? He didn't have to ask who her was. Mom? Because if Victoria is trying to come back into your lives, you need to be very careful. Janet's voice dropped. That woman destroyed you, Lucas. She destroyed both of you, and I will not stand by and watch her do it again. Where's Arya? Upstairs, doing homework. Don't change the subject. Lucas headed for the kitchen, his mother following close behind. He grabbed a beer from the fridge, twisted off the cap, and took a long drink before turning to face her. I met with her, he said quietly. This afternoon. That's where I was. Janet's face went through several expressions in rapid succession. Shock, anger, fear, and finally settling on something that looked like disappointment. Why would you do that? Because she asked, and because I needed answers. After 10 years, what answers could possibly matter now? The truth, Mom, about why she left. Janet laughed, sharp and bitter. She left because she was selfish, because being a mother was too hard and she took the easy way out. That's the truth. She was sick. The words came out before Lucas could stop them. His mother stared at him. What? She had postpartum psychosis. After Arya was born. She was having thoughts about, his voice caught, about hurting the baby, so she checked herself into a psychiatric hospital. Janet's expression didn't soften. If anything, it got harder. And you believe her? Why would she lie? Because she wants back in, because she's built this fancy life and now she feels guilty and wants to ease her conscience by playing mommy again. Janet grabbed his arm. Think about what you're doing, Lucas. That woman abandoned you, abandoned her daughter. No explanation, no goodbye, nothing. You filed a missing persons report for heaven's sake. And now she shows up with some story about being sick and you just, what, forgive her? I didn't say I forgave her. But you're considering it. Lucas pulled his arm away. I'm considering telling Arya the truth. That's different. No, absolutely not. Janet's voice went sharp. That girl has been through enough. She doesn't need Victoria Hale swooping in and confusing everything. She deserves to know her mother didn't abandon her because she wasn't wanted. She wasn't abandoned because of mental illness either. She was abandoned because Victoria was too weak to get help, too selfish to stay and fight. Janet pointed upstairs. You know what Arya said to me last month? She said she was glad she didn't have a mom because it meant she didn't have to share you. Do you know how twisted that is? How much pain is behind that kind of thinking? Lucas felt sick. She said that? She's protecting herself. She's built a life where Victoria doesn't exist because it's the only way she knows how to cope. And now you want to blow that up? I want to give her the truth. The truth won't change anything, Janet's voice cracked. It won't give her back those 10 years. It won't erase the birthdays and Christmases and first days of school where she watched other kids with their mothers and wondered what was wrong with her. Mental illness doesn't make abandonment hurt less, Lucas. It just gives you a prettier word for it. They stood there in the kitchen, the only sound the hum of the refrigerator and Arya's music drifting down from upstairs. Dad? They both turned. Arya stood in the doorway, her homework folder clutched to her chest, looking between them with wary eyes. How much had she heard? Hey, kiddo. Lucas forced a smile. Sorry I forgot to pick you up. It's okay. Grandma got me. Arya glanced at Janet, then back to Lucas. Are you guys fighting? No, baby. Just talking. About what? Janet and Lucas exchanged a look. Adult stuff, Janet said. Nothing for you to worry about. Arya's expression went carefully neutral, the same look she got whenever they tried to protect her from something. She was too smart for her own good sometimes. I'm going to go finish my homework, she said quietly, already backing away. Arya. But she was gone, her footsteps quick on the stairs. Janet waited until they heard Arya's bedroom door close. You see? She knows something's wrong. Kids always know. Lucas set down his beer, suddenly exhausted. I don't know what to do. You do nothing. You keep that woman away from Arya and you move on with your lives like you've been doing just fine for the past 10 years. Have we been doing fine? Lucas looked at his mother. Really? Because Arya just told you she's glad she doesn't have a mother. That doesn't sound fine to me. She's a teenager. They say dramatic things. She's hurt, Mom. She's been hurt her whole life, and maybe knowing the truth would help. Janet's jaw set in that stubborn way that meant she'd made up her mind. Or maybe it would make everything worse. You willing to take that risk? Before Lucas could answer, his phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. I know you need time to think, but I wanted you to have this. She deserves to know I thought about her, even if I couldn't be there. Below the text was an image, a photo of a framed picture on what looked like a desk. Arya as a newborn, wrapped in the pink blanket Lucas's mom had knitted for her. The frame was expensive-looking, polished wood. Behind it, barely visible, was what looked like an office, Victoria's office. What is it? Janet asked. Lucas showed her the screen. His mother's expression hardened. She kept a picture? How touching. That makes up for everything. But Lucas was staring at the photo, something twisting in his chest. Victoria had kept a picture of Arya on her desk. For 10 years, while building her empire, she'd looked at their daughter's face every day. That had to mean something. Didn't it? The next 3 days were hell. Lucas went through the motions: work, dinner with Arya, helping with homework, the normal routine. But his mind was somewhere else, stuck in that cafe, replaying Victoria's words over and over. I was dangerous. I thought leaving would protect her. She deserves the truth. Arya noticed. Of course she noticed. You okay, Dad? She asked Wednesday night while they were doing dishes together. Yeah, kiddo, just tired. You've been tired a lot lately. Lucas handed her a plate to dry. Work stuff. Is the business okay? The business is fine. Then what is it? He looked at her, really looked at her. 14 years old and already so much like her mother it hurt. The same sharp intelligence in her eyes. The same way of tilting her head when she was trying to figure something out. Nothing for you to worry about, he said. Arya dried the plate in silence, her mouth pressed into a thin line. The subject closed line. The I know you're lying, but I won't push it line. It killed him. That night, after Arya went to bed, Lucas pulled out his laptop and did something he'd sworn he'd never do again. He Googled Victoria. The search results were overwhelming. Hundreds of articles, interviews, profiles. He clicked on a TED Talk from 2 years ago, Innovation Through Adversity. Victoria stood on stage in a simple black dress, her hair longer than it had been in the cafe, speaking to a crowd of thousands. She looked confident, powerful, nothing like the broken woman who'd left his house in the middle of the night. People ask me all the time where I get my drive, she was saying. What motivates me to keep pushing, keep building, keep innovating. And the truth is, she paused, and Lucas saw something flicker across her face. Pain, maybe, or regret. The truth is, I'm trying to prove something, to myself more than anyone, that I'm capable of finishing what I start, that I'm not the person who gives up when things get hard. The audience applauded. They had no idea what she was really talking about, but Lucas did. He watched 3 more videos, read a dozen articles. Each one painted the same picture. Brilliant, driven, successful. A woman who'd built something from nothing. None of them mentioned a daughter. None of them mentioned him. It was like that part of her life had been erased, or maybe carefully hidden. He found himself wondering if her employees knew, if the journalists who interviewed her had any idea she'd once been a mother. His phone rang. Unknown number. Lucas almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. Hello? Mr. Bennett, this is Sarah Chen. I'm Victoria Hale's executive assistant. Lucas sat up straight. How did you get my number? Ms. Hale asked me to call. She wanted me to clarify something about your conversation the other day. She wanted you to know that everything she told you can be verified. Medical records, hospital admission dates, treatment plans. She's willing to provide documentation if it would help you make your decision. Lucas felt something cold settle in his stomach. She's offering to prove she was sick? She understands you might not believe her, given the circumstances. She wants you to know she's not lying. Tell her. Lucas stopped. What was he supposed to say? Tell her I'll think about it. Of course. And Mr. Bennett? For what it's worth, I've worked for Miss Hale for 5 years. I've never seen her as nervous about anything as she was about that meeting. Whatever happened between you two, it still matters to her. A lot. The assistant hung up before Lucas could respond. He sat there in the dark living room, the laptop screen casting blue light across his face, and tried to figure out what he was supposed to do with any of this. His phone buzzed again. This time, it was a text from his sister, Maya, who lived 2 states away but somehow always knew when something was wrong. Mom called me, said Victoria's back, you okay? Lucas typed out 3 different responses before settling on complicated. Maya's response was immediate. You want me to come down there? No, I'm fine. You're not fine. Nobody's fine when their ex shows up after a decade. She was sick, Maya. Postpartum psychosis. She didn't just leave, she was trying to protect Arya. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, that doesn't mean she gets to come back. I know. But you're thinking about letting her. Was he? Lucas didn't even know anymore. I'm thinking about telling Arya the truth, he typed. That's all. That's not all. And you know it. You tell Arya she's going to want to meet Victoria. And then what? I don't know. Lucas, be careful. Please. I love you, but you have a blind spot when it comes to that woman. Lucas stared at the words. Did he? Or did he just want to believe that someone he'd loved that much couldn't have left without a good reason? He didn't answer Maya's text. Friday afternoon, Lucas was in his office at the auto shop when his phone rang. This time he recognized the number, Arya's school. Mr. Bennett? This is Principal Morrison. I'm afraid we have a situation. Lucas's heart dropped. Is Arya okay? She's fine physically, but I need you to come pick her up. There's been an incident. 20 minutes later, Lucas was sitting in the principal's office with Arya slumped in the chair next to him, her arms crossed and her face red. Want to tell me what happened? Principal Morrison asked. Arya said nothing. She punched another student, the principal said when it became clear Arya wasn't going to speak. Broke his nose. What? Lucas turned to stare at his daughter. Arya. He deserved it, Arya muttered. That's not the point, Miss Bennett. We have a zero-tolerance policy for violence. What did he say to her? Lucas asked. Principal Morrison hesitated. According to witnesses, there was an argument about a group project. The other student made some comments about Arya's family situation that were inappropriate. What kind of comments? The principal looked uncomfortable. Something about her not having a mother making her weird, and some additional remarks I won't repeat. Lucas felt anger flash hot through his chest. And what's happening to him? He's receiving a 3-day suspension as well. But Mr. Bennett, this isn't the first time Arya's had issues controlling her temper. Last month she defended another kid from a bully, and you suspended her for that too, Lucas cut in. Seems like maybe the problem isn't my daughter's temper. Maybe it's the kids you're letting harass her. Mr. Bennett, we're done here. Come on, Arya. They walked to the truck in silence. Arya climbed in and stared straight ahead, her jaw clenched. Lucas started the engine but didn't put it in gear. You want to talk about it? He asked. No? Arya, I said no. She turned to glare at him, and there were tears on her face. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about her. I don't want to think about the fact that everyone else has a mom except me. I just want... Her voice broke. I just want to be normal. Lucas's chest felt like it was caving in. Baby, just don't. Arya wiped her eyes roughly. Can we just go home, please? They drove home in silence. That night, Lucas made Arya's favorite dinner, chicken parmesan with garlic bread. She picked at it, barely eating. I'm sorry I punched him, she said finally. I know. When he said that thing about Mom, I couldn't... She stopped. I know I'm not supposed to care, that it's been forever and I should be over it. But sometimes it just makes me so angry. Lucas set down his fork. You don't have to be over it. Everyone else is. You don't talk about her. Grandma doesn't talk about her. It's like she never existed. That's not true. Isn't it? Arya looked at him with eyes too old for her face. You won't even say her name, Dad. When kids ask about my mom, you just say, she's not in the picture. Like she's a character you cut out of a movie. I was trying to protect you. From what? The truth? Arya laughed, bitter. I'm 14, not 4. I can handle the truth. And there it was. The opening he'd been looking for all week, served up by his daughter who had no idea what she was asking for. Lucas took a deep breath. What if I told you there's more to the story than you know? Arya went very still. What do you mean? About why your mom left. About what happened. I thought you didn't know why she left. You said, I know, but I... Lucas stopped. This was it. The moment where he either told her or didn't. Where he either let Victoria back into their lives or kept her out forever. His mother's voice echoed in his head. The truth won't change anything. But looking at his daughter's face, seeing the pain she tried so hard to hide, Lucas wasn't sure that was true. I saw her, he said quietly. Your mom, earlier this week. Arya's fork clattered against her plate. What? She reached out, asked to meet, and I went. You saw her? You saw Mom? Arya's voice was climbing. And you didn't tell me. I needed to understand some things first. Before I decided whether what? Whether I got to know? Arya stood up so fast her chair scraped. That's not your choice. You're my daughter. Protecting you is always my choice. I'm not a baby. Arya was crying now, angry tears. You can't just decide what I do and don't get to know about my own mother. Arya, please sit down. No, tell me. Tell me right now why she left. You said there was more to the story, so tell me. Lucas looked at his daughter. Her fists clenched, her face blotchy with tears, her whole body shaking, and made his choice. She was sick, he said. After you were born, she got very sick. In her mind, and she was afraid she might hurt you, so she left to get help. Arya stared at him. What? She had something called postpartum psychosis. It made her have scary thoughts. Thoughts about hurting the baby, hurting you. She didn't want to, but her brain was sick and she couldn't control it, so she checked herself into a hospital. For 10 years? No, for about 2 years. After that, she convinced herself we were better off without her. That coming back would just make things worse. Arya sank back into her chair, looking dazed. She was sick. Yeah. So she didn't leave because of me? No, baby, never because of you. Then why? Arya's voice cracked. Why didn't she come back? Once she got better, why didn't she come back? I don't know. I think she was ashamed, scared. I think she told herself a story where we were happier without her, and she believed it. But we weren't. Arya whispered it. We weren't happier. Lucas reached across the table and took her hand. I know. They sat there for a long moment, Arya's tears dripping onto the tablecloth, Lucas's throat too tight to speak. Finally, Arya looked up at him. Where is she now? In the city. She's pretty successful, CEO of a tech company. Does she want to see me? Lucas squeezed her hand. More than anything. Do you want her to see me? That was the question, wasn't it? The one Lucas had been wrestling with all week. I don't know, he said honestly. Part of me wants to protect you from getting hurt again. But another part thinks, maybe you deserve to make that choice yourself. Arya pulled her hand back and wrapped her arms around herself. I don't know if I can forgive her. You don't have to. But what if I meet her and I hate her? Or what if I don't hate her and then she leaves again? Those are all possibilities. That's not helpful, Dad. I know. Lucas tried to smile. But it's honest. Arya was quiet for a long time, staring at her plate. I want to think about it, she said finally. Can I have some time to think? Of course. And if I decide I want to meet her, you won't stop me? Lucas felt his heart crack a little. No, I won't stop you. Arya nodded and stood up. I'm going to go to my room. Arya skeets. I'm not mad at you. I need to process. She gave him a small, shaky smile. That's what my counselor says. When things are overwhelming, I need to process. Lucas had forgotten Arya was seeing a counselor. The school had set it up after the first suspension. Take all the time you need, he said. She left her dinner uneaten on the table. Lucas sat there alone, surrounded by cooling food and the weight of what he'd just done, and wondered if he'd made the right choice. His phone buzzed. Another text from Victoria. I don't expect you to answer this, but I wanted to say thank you for listening, for not just dismissing me outright. Whatever you decide, I respect it. Lucas stared at the message for a long time before typing back. I told Arya. She's thinking about it. 3 dots appeared immediately. Disappeared, appeared again. Thank you. I know that wasn't easy. Don't thank me yet. She might decide she wants nothing to do with you. I know, but at least she'll have all the information. That's all I wanted. Lucas set the phone down and dropped his head into his hands. What the hell had he just started? Arya didn't come out of her room for the rest of the night. Lucas stood outside her door twice, hand raised to knock, but stopped himself both times. She'd asked for space to think. He needed to give her that, even if it was killing him. Around midnight, he finally gave up on sleep and went downstairs. The house felt too quiet, too still. He poured himself a whiskey he didn't really want and sat at the kitchen table staring at his phone. Victoria's last message was still on the screen. That's all I wanted. His thumb hovered over the keyboard. He typed out a message. She's scared. Then deleted it. Typed another. I don't know if this was the right choice, and deleted that too. Finally, he just put the phone face down on the table and tried not to think about anything at all. It didn't work. The weekend crawled by like something wounded. Arya stayed in her room most of Saturday, only coming out for meals she barely touched. She was polite when Lucas asked if she was okay, distant when he tried to talk about anything deeper. By Sunday afternoon, he was ready to climb the walls. His mother showed up unannounced around 3, letting herself in with the spare key she'd never returned. "Where's Arya?" she asked, not bothering with hello. "Upstairs." "You told her." It wasn't a question. Janet set her purse on the counter with a thud. "I can see it on your face. You told her about Victoria." She deserved to know. What she deserved was to be protected. Janet's voice was sharp. "How's she handling it?" "How do you think?" "That's not an answer, Lucas." He slumped against the counter, suddenly exhausted. "She's confused, angry, processing. She won't talk to me about it." "Of course she won't. You just blew up her entire understanding of her life." Janet grabbed a glass from the cabinet and filled it with water she didn't drink. "What were you thinking?" "I was thinking she had a right to the truth." "The truth?" Janet laughed, bitter. "You sound just like Victoria, always so concerned with truth and honesty. Never mind the damage it causes." "That's not fair." "Isn't it?" Janet turned to face him. "That woman left you both without a word. Whether she was sick or not, she still made that choice. And now you're inviting her back in, and Arya's the one who's going to pay the price when Victoria decides this whole mother thing is too hard again." "You don't know that." "Don't I?" Janet's eyes were bright with old anger. "I watched you fall apart when she left, Lucas. I watched you cry yourself to sleep on my couch while your baby screamed in the next room because you couldn't afford childcare and had to bring her to work. I watched you work yourself half to death trying to be both parents. So yes, I think I know exactly what Victoria Hale is capable of." Lucas didn't have an answer for that, because she was right. His mother had been there through all of it, the sleepless nights, the panic attacks, the times he'd called her at 2 in the morning because he didn't know how to get Arya to stop crying, and he was terrified he was doing everything wrong. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "I know this is hard for you too." Janet's expression softened slightly. "I just don't want to see either of you hurt again." "Neither do I. But Mom, what if keeping them apart hurts worse? What if Arya spends the rest of her life wondering what might have been different? Or what if she meets Victoria and realizes she liked the fantasy better than the reality?" Before Lucas could respond, footsteps sounded on the stairs. Both of them turned as Arya appeared in the kitchen doorway, still in her pajamas even though it was mid-afternoon. "Hi, Grandma," she said quietly. "Hi, baby." Janet crossed the kitchen and pulled Arya into a hug. "How are you doing?" "I'm okay." "Liar." But Janet said it gently, with love. "You want to talk about it?" Arya pulled back and looked between them. "Did Dad tell you?" "That he saw your mother?" "Yes." "Are you mad at him?" "I'm mad at the situation, but no, sweetheart. I'm not mad at your dad." Janet smoothed Arya's hair back from her face. "I'm just worried about you." "Everyone's worried about me." Arya's voice had an edge to it. "Everyone keeps asking if I'm okay and looking at me like I'm going to break. I'm not going to break." "No one thinks you will," Lucas said. "Then stop treating me like it." Arya moved past them to the fridge, pulling out orange juice and drinking straight from the carton, something Lucas usually called her out for, but today he let slide. "I've been thinking a lot, and I have questions." "Okay," Lucas said carefully. "First, where is she right now? Like, right this second?" "Probably at home, or her office. I don't know her schedule." "Does she live in the city?" "I assume so. I didn't ask." Arya set down the juice. "Is she married? Does she have other kids?" The question hit Lucas like a punch. He hadn't even thought about that. "I don't know." "You didn't ask?" "I was kind of focused on other things." "What did you talk about then?" Lucas exchanged a glance with his mother. "She told me about being sick, about what happened after you were born. The postpartum thing." "Yeah." "And you believe her?" Yes, I do." "Why?" Arya's eyes were sharp, challenging. "How do you know she's not just making it up?" "Because she offered to show me medical records, hospital documentation. She's willing to prove it. Arya was quiet for a moment. Did she ask about me? Of course she did. What did she want to know? Lucas's throat felt tight. Everything. What you're like now. What you're interested in. If you were happy. What did you tell her? That you're brilliant. That you're kind. That you look just like her. Something flickered across Arya's face, an emotion Lucas couldn't quite read. She kept a picture of me. In her office. How did you know that? She texted you. I saw it when your phone was on the counter yesterday. Arya looked down at her hands. She had a picture of me even though she left. She never stopped thinking about you, baby. But she stayed away anyway. Arya looked up, and there were tears in her eyes. That's the part I don't get. If she got better, if she wasn't sick anymore, why didn't she come back? Was it because... Her voice cracked. Was it because once she got away, she realized she didn't actually want to be my mom? No. Lucas crossed the kitchen and pulled her into his arms. No, Arya, that's not what happened. Then what did happen? Lucas looked at his mother over Arya's head. Janet's expression was pained. She thought you were better off without her, Lucas said. She saw that we were doing okay, and she convinced herself that showing up would only make things worse, that you'd moved on. That's stupid, Arya said into his chest. Yeah, it kind of is. You can't just leave someone and then decide for them whether or not they want you back. That's not how it works. You're right. Arya pulled back, wiping her eyes. I want to meet her. Janet made a sound like she'd been hit. Arya, I want to meet her, Arya repeated, looking at Lucas. You said I could decide. I'm deciding. Lucas's heart was hammering. Are you sure? No, but I want to anyway. Arya's voice was shaky but determined, because right now she's just this story, this person who left, and I need to know if she's real, if she's actually sorry, if she... Her voice broke again. If she actually wants to know me, or if she just wants to feel better about herself. Okay, Lucas said. Okay, I'll set it up. When? I don't know. Soon. We'll figure it out. This is a mistake, Janet said quietly. Both of you are making a huge mistake. Arya turned to her grandmother. Maybe, but it's my mistake to make. Lucas had never been prouder of his daughter, or more terrified for her. That night, after Arya had gone back to her room and his mother had left with a litany of warnings, Lucas sat down and wrote a text to Victoria. Arya wants to meet you. He stared at it for 5 minutes before hitting send. The response came in less than 30 seconds. When? Lucas typed back. I don't know yet. Soon. But we need to set some ground rules first. Anything, whatever you need. Not over text. Can you meet me tomorrow? Lunch? Yes? Where? They arranged to meet at a different cafe this time, one on the other side of town where neither of them had history. Lucas barely slept that night, his mind running through everything he needed to say, every boundary he needed to set. Victoria was already there when he arrived, sitting at a corner table with her hands wrapped around a coffee cup. She stood when she saw him, then seemed to think better of it and sat back down. Lucas slid into the seat across from her. She looked different than she had the week before. Less polished, more nervous. Her hair was down, no makeup except for what looked like concealer under her eyes. Like she hadn't been sleeping either. Thank you for meeting me, she said. We need to talk about how this is going to work. I know. I'm serious, Victoria. If we do this, if I let you meet Arya, there are going to be rules. And if you break them, that's it. You're done. I understand. Do you? Lucas leaned forward. Because this isn't about you. It's not about making yourself feel better or easing your guilt. This is about a 14-year-old girl who's been hurt enough already. And I will not let you hurt her again. I don't want to hurt her. Oh, then prove it. Lucas pulled out his phone and opened the Notes app where he'd typed everything out at 3 a.m. First rule, you don't make promises you can't keep. If you tell her you're going to be in her life, you better mean it. No backing out because it gets hard or uncomfortable. I won't back out. Second, this is on Arya's timeline, not yours. If she needs space, you give it to her. If she doesn't want to see you for a while, you respect that. No guilt trips, no manipulation. Of course. Third, you don't talk about money. She knows you're successful, but she doesn't need details about how rich you are or what you can buy her. That's not what this is about. Victoria nodded, her hands tightening around the coffee cup. Fourth, you don't badmouth me to her, or my mother, or anyone in our lives. Whatever issues you have with how I've raised her, you keep to yourself. Lucas, I would never... Fifth, and this is the big one. Lucas set down his phone and looked her straight in the eye. You don't disappear again, ever. If this doesn't work out, if Arya decides she doesn't want a relationship with you, fine. But you don't just vanish. You talk to her like an adult and you give her closure. You owe her that much. I can do all of that. I'm not finished. Lucas's jaw was tight. If you hurt her, if you let her down or break her heart, or make her feel like she wasn't worth fighting for, I will make sure you never get another chance. I don't care how many billions you have or how many lawyers you can afford. You'll never see her again. Victoria's eyes were wet. I know. Do you? Because she's not just some abstract concept to me, Victoria. She's my whole world. She's the reason I get up in the morning. She's the reason I didn't completely fall apart when you left. And I will protect her from anything, including you. I know, Victoria repeated, softer this time. And you should. You're a good father, Lucas. You always were. Don't. Lucas held up a hand. Don't try to make this about us. This isn't about us. I know it's not. But I need you to understand something. Victoria set down her coffee cup. I'm not doing this because I think I can slide back into her life and play mommy. I'm doing this because she deserves to know the truth. She deserves to look me in the eye and decide for herself whether I'm worth forgiving. And whatever she decides, I'll live with it. Even if she hates you. Even then, Victoria's voice was steady. Because at least she'll know. At least she won't spend the rest of her life wondering. They sat in silence for a moment. The cafe bustled around them, people ordering coffee and typing on laptops and living normal lives. Where do you want to do this? Lucas asked finally. The meeting. Wherever Arya feels comfortable. Not your office, not your house, somewhere neutral. The park? Victoria suggested. There's that big one downtown, with the lake. Lucas knew the one she meant. He and Arya went there sometimes to feed the ducks. It was public enough to feel safe, but quiet enough to talk. Okay, he said. The park. Saturday afternoon, 2:00. Should I bring anything? Just yourself. Lucas stood up. And Victoria, don't be late. I won't. He started to leave, then turned back. She's going to have questions, hard ones. Are you ready for that? No. Victoria smiled, sad and small. But I'm going to answer them anyway. Lucas left the cafe feeling like he'd just set something in motion that he couldn't stop. Like standing at the top of a hill and pushing a boulder down, watching it pick up speed knowing there was no way to call it back. When he got home, Arya was waiting in the living room. Well? She asked. Saturday, 2:00, Riverside Park. Arya's face went pale. That's in 5 days. Is that too soon? I can push it back? No? Arya shook her head. If I wait too long, I'll chicken out. Saturday's good. You don't have to do this, you know. You can still change your mind. I know. Arya twisted her hands together. But I want to. I think I want to. Lucas sat down next to her on the couch. What are you most scared of? Arya was quiet for a long moment. That I'll meet her and she'll be this amazing person. And I'll wonder why she didn't think I was worth staying for. Or that I'll meet her and she'll be awful and I'll realize I've been mourning someone who wasn't even worth it. She looked at him with wet eyes. Either way, I lose. Or maybe you meet her and get some answers, and maybe those answers help. Do you think they will? Lucas didn't know how to answer that. I think the not knowing has been eating at you your whole life. And maybe knowing is better, even if it hurts. Did seeing her again hurt you? Yeah, Lucas admitted. It did. But you're glad you went? He thought about it. About Victoria's tears, her explanations, the way she'd looked when she talked about being sick, about the picture on her desk, and the way his heart had cracked open when he realized she'd never really forgotten them. Yeah, he said. I'm glad I went. Arya leaned her head on his shoulder. I'm scared, Dad. I know, baby. Me too. The week leading up to Saturday was torture. Arya swung between determination and panic, sometimes in the span of an hour. Tuesday night, she announced she'd changed her mind and couldn't go through with it. Wednesday morning, she texted Lucas at work asking if they could move the meeting up to Thursday. By Friday, she'd changed her outfit 4 times and asked Lucas at least 20 questions he couldn't answer. What if she doesn't like me? She's gonna love you. What if I don't like her? Then you don't have to see her again. What if she cries? Probably she will. What if I cry? That's okay too. What am I supposed to call her? Mom? Victoria? Ms. Hale? Whatever feels right. That's not helpful, Dad. I know. Friday night, Janet came over for dinner. She'd been mostly silent on the subject of the meeting all week, which was more unsettling than if she'd been arguing against it. You ready for tomorrow? She asked Arya over chicken stir-fry. No. That's honest, at least. Janet set down her fork. You know you don't have to be nice to her, right? You don't owe her anything. Mom, Lucas started. I'm serious. She's the one who left. She's the one who needs to earn her way back. You don't have to make it easy for her, Arya. I know. Arya pushed rice around her plate. But what if I want to? Make it easy, I mean. Then that's your choice. Janet reached over and squeezed Arya's hand. I just want you to know you're allowed to be angry. You're allowed to make her work for it. Are you angry? Arya asked. At her? Furious, Janet said without hesitation. Absolutely furious. She hurt my son and my granddaughter, and I don't forgive that easily. But you're letting me see her anyway. Because it's not my decision to make. As much as I wish it was. Janet looked at Lucas. Your dad thinks this is what you need, and I trust his judgment, even when I don't agree with it. That night, Lucas stood outside Arya's door again, listening to the sound of her moving around inside. He knocked softly. Come in. She was sitting on her bed, surrounded by printouts, articles about Victoria, screenshots from her company website, photos from various interviews and events. What's all this? Lucas asked. Research? Arya held up a Forbes profile. Did you know she's on the Forbes 400 list? She's worth like $2 billion. I didn't know the exact number. She spoke at the UN last year about technology and developing nations. Arya shuffled through more papers. She's on the board of 3 different charities. She's won all these awards. Her voice caught. She's done all this stuff, all these important things, and she never once mentioned having a daughter. Lucas sat down on the edge of her bed. That probably hurt to find out. It makes me feel invisible, like I'm this secret she's ashamed of. Or maybe she kept you private because you were the one thing in her life that wasn't about business, the one thing she wanted to protect. Or maybe she just doesn't want people to know she abandoned her kid. Lucas didn't have an answer for that. You can ask her tomorrow. Ask her anything you want. Arya set down the papers and looked at him. What if I ask her why she didn't come back and she doesn't have a good answer? What if it's just, I don't know. What if she just didn't care enough? Then at least you'll know, and you can move on. I don't know if I want to move on. Arya's voice was small. Part of me still wants, I know it's stupid, but part of me still wants a mom. Lucas pulled her into a hug. That's not stupid. That's the most normal thing in the world. She cried into his shoulder and Lucas held her and wished he could protect her from what was coming. But he couldn't. All he could do was be there to pick up the pieces if everything fell apart. Saturday morning dawned clear and cold. Lucas barely slept, waking up every hour to check the time. At 6, he gave up and went for a run, trying to burn off the anxiety that was eating him alive. When he got back, Arya was already up, sitting at the kitchen table in her pajamas with her phone. She texted you, Arya said, sliding the phone across the table. Victoria's message was simple. I'll be there. Thank you for this chance. You gave her your number? Lucas asked. Last night. I wanted to see if she'd actually show up or if she'd bail. Arya pulled the phone back. She responded in like 30 seconds. She's been awake all night too, I think. She sent another message at 4 a.m., asking if there was anything specific I wanted her to bring or if I had any food allergies, or Arya's voice got tight. She's nervous. I can tell. Yeah, she is. Is that weird that she's nervous to meet me? No, it makes sense. She knows how much this matters. Arya stared at her phone screen. What if I throw up? You won't throw up. You don't know that. I threw up before my science fair presentation. Because you'd eaten 3 energy drinks and a bag of Skittles for breakfast. I was nervous. Arya. Lucas reached across and took her hand. Whatever happens today, I've got you. Okay? If it's too much, we leave. If you need a break, we take one. This is on your terms. Promise? Promise. They spent the rest of the morning in a state of suspended animation. Arya tried on 6 different outfits before settling on jeans and the sweatshirt from her robotics team. Casual enough not to look like she was trying too hard, she explained, but nice enough to show she cared. Lucas didn't point out that she was overthinking it. He just told her she looked perfect. At 1:30, they got in the truck and started driving. The park was 20 minutes away, but Lucas drove slowly, letting Arya control the radio and not commenting when she changed the station every 30 seconds. What if she brings her husband? Arya asked suddenly. She won't. I told her to come alone. But what if she's married and didn't tell you? Then that's something you can ask her about. What if she has other kids? What if she left us and then started a whole new family and… Arya. Lucas pulled into the park entrance. You can't catastrophize before you even meet her. One step at a time. They parked near the lake. Through the windshield, Lucas could see the bench they'd agreed on, near the water, visible from the parking lot, public enough to feel safe. Victoria was already there. She sat on the bench with her hands folded in her lap, wearing jeans and a simple sweater. The most casual Lucas had ever seen her. No jewelry except for a watch, hair pulled back in a ponytail. She looked young, scared, human. That's her, Arya whispered. Yeah, she's waiting for us. Yeah. Arya didn't move. She just stared through the windshield at the woman on the bench, her breathing getting faster. I can't do this, she said. Dad, I can't. Yes, you can. No, I really can't. I'm going to be sick. I need to go home. Can we go home? Lucas turned in his seat to face her. Look at me. Arya dragged her eyes away from Victoria to meet his gaze. You are the bravest person I know, Lucas said. You've survived losing a mother. You've survived other kids being cruel about it. You've survived wondering your whole life if there was something wrong with you. This? Meeting her. You can survive this too. But what if… No, what ifs? You go out there, you ask your questions, you listen to her answers, and then you decide what you want to do next. That's all this is. Arya took a shaky breath, then another. You'll stay close? I'll be right there the whole time. I promise. Okay. Arya unbuckled her seatbelt. Okay, let's go before I change my mind again. They got out of the truck and started walking toward the bench. Victoria spotted them and stood up so fast she nearly tripped. Her hands went to her sides, then to her pockets, then back to her sides, like she didn't know what to do with them. As they got closer, Lucas could see she'd been crying. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her face blotchy. 20 feet away. 15. 10. Victoria's eyes were locked on Arya, drinking her in like she was trying to memorize every detail. 5 feet. They stopped. For a long moment, nobody spoke. Victoria and Arya just stared at each other, and Lucas felt like his heart was going to beat out of his chest. Hi, Victoria finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. Arya didn't respond. She just stood there, her fists clenched at her sides, her whole body rigid. You look so much like… Victoria's voice broke. You look just like I imagined you would. You imagined me? The words came out sharp, challenging. Every day. Victoria took a step forward, then seemed to think better of it and stepped back. Every single day for 14 years. Arya's jaw was set, her eyes bright with unshed tears. Then why didn't you come back? And just like that, it started. Victoria looked like the question had physically struck her. Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. I was afraid, she said finally. Of what? Arya's voice was getting louder. Of me? Of disappointing you, of making things worse. Victoria's hands were shaking. I convinced myself that you were better off without me, that showing up would only hurt you more. So you just decided that for me? You just decided I didn't get a choice? Yes. Victoria didn't look away. And I was wrong. Arya made a sound that was half laugh, half sob. Yeah, you were. Lucas stood a few feet back, his hands in his pockets. watching his daughter face down the woman who'd left her. Every instinct screamed at him to step in, to protect Arya from this pain, but she'd asked him to stay close, not to intervene. So he stayed silent. "Your dad told you about the hospital?" Victoria asked. "He told me you were sick, that you had postpartum psychosis." Arya's voice was flat, controlled. "That you thought you might hurt me." "I didn't think I might. I was terrified I would." Victoria wrapped her arms around herself. "The thoughts I was having, they weren't me, but they felt real, and I couldn't take the chance that one day I might not be able to stop myself. So you left in the middle of the night, no note, no explanation, nothing." "I know." "Do you?" Arya took a step forward. "Do you know what that was like for him, for my dad? He thought you were dead. He thought someone had taken you. He blamed himself." Victoria's face crumpled. "I know, and I'm so sorry." "Don't apologize to me. Apologize to him." Arya pointed at Lucas. "He's the one who had to pick up the pieces. He's the one who raised me alone. He's the one who showed up every single day, even when it was hard." "You're right." Victoria turned to Lucas, tears streaming down her face. "I'm sorry. For all of it. For leaving, for not reaching out, for making you do it alone." Lucas felt something twist in his chest. "This isn't about me." "Yes, it is." Arya was crying now too. "Because you were the one who was there. You were the one who stayed. And she turned back to Victoria. "You got to leave. You got to start over and become this successful person, and you didn't have to deal with any of it." "You think I started over?" Victoria's voice cracked. "You think I just moved on and forgot about you? Didn't you? You built this whole empire, made all this money, won all these awards, and you never once mentioned having a daughter." "Because I was ashamed." Victoria's composure finally shattered completely. "Because every time I accomplished something, all I could think was that none of it mattered because I'd failed at the one thing that actually counted, being your mother." Arya flinched. "I kept your picture on my desk," Victoria continued, the words tumbling out now. "I tracked every milestone I could find online. First day of kindergarten, science fair wins, soccer team photos. I watched you grow up through a screen because I didn't think I deserved to do it in person." "You didn't." The words came out harsh. "You didn't deserve it. You left." "I know." "Stop saying that." Arya's voice rose. "Stop saying I know like it fixes anything. You don't know. You don't know what it was like to be the only kid in class without a mom. You don't know what it's like to make up stories about where you are because the truth is too embarrassing. You don't know what it's like to wonder every single day if there was something wrong with you that made your own mother leave." "You're right. I don't know." Victoria was openly sobbing now. "But I need you to understand, leaving you was the hardest thing I've ever done, and staying away was worse. Every day I stayed away was torture, but I truly believed that coming back would be selfish, that it would hurt you more than my absence already had." "Well, you were wrong." Arya wiped her face roughly. "Because not knowing why you left hurt more than anything." They stood there facing each other, both crying, both trembling. Lucas had never felt more helpless in his life. "Can I?" Victoria took a tentative step forward. "Can I tell you what happened? The whole story?" "Dad already told me." "He told you the medical part. But there's more. Things I never told him." Victoria glanced at Lucas, then back to Arya. "Things I need you to know." Arya looked at Lucas. He gave a small nod. "Your choice." "Fine," Arya said. "Talk." Victoria gestured to the bench. "Can we sit?" "I'll stand." "Okay." Victoria sat down anyway, her legs apparently unable to hold her anymore. "After you were born, I was so happy at first. Terrified, but happy. You were perfect. Tiny and perfect, and I couldn't believe you were mine." Arya's expression didn't change, but Lucas saw her shift her weight, settling in to listen. "But then the fear started," Victoria continued. "Little things at first. Checking on you constantly to make sure you were breathing. Triple-checking the car seat. Obsessing over every little sound you made. Your dad thought I was just being a nervous new mom." "I was working a lot," Lucas said quietly. It was the first time he'd spoken since they'd sat down. "You were trying to save the business. I know. And I told you I was fine because I didn't want to be one more thing you had to worry about. Victoria looked at her hands. But I wasn't fine. The checking turned into compulsions. I had to touch your crib 5 times before I could leave the room. Had to count to 10 between checking on you. Had to arrange your bottles in a specific order, or I'd convince myself something terrible would happen. OCD, Lucas said, the pieces clicking together. You had OCD. Along with the psychosis, yes. The doctors explained it later. Sometimes they occur together. The obsessive thoughts and the intrusive images. They fed off each other. Victoria's voice was distant, clinical, like she was describing someone else's symptoms. And then the intrusive thoughts started getting worse, more violent, more frequent. I would be feeding you and suddenly imagine dropping you, changing your diaper. And imagine... She stopped, her face going pale. I couldn't even finish the thoughts sometimes. They were too horrible, and the worst part was that I couldn't control them. They would just appear in my head, these awful images, and I couldn't make them stop. Did you tell anyone? Arya asked. Besides Dad? I didn't tell your dad. I didn't tell anyone. Victoria wiped her eyes. I was so ashamed. I thought it meant I was a monster, that there was something fundamentally broken in me. What kind of mother has thoughts about hurting her own baby? A sick one, Lucas said. Not a bad one. Sick. I didn't understand the difference back then. I just knew I couldn't trust myself. Victoria looked up at Arya. The night I left, I'd had the worst episode yet. I was giving you a bath, and I had this vivid image of you drowning. And for a split second, just a split second, I wondered what would happen if I didn't pull you out. Arya went very still. I jerked back so hard I almost dropped you, Victoria continued. Got you out of the bath, wrapped you in a towel, and just held you while you cried. And I realized I couldn't do this anymore. I couldn't trust that next time I'd pull back. Next time I might freeze. Or worse. So you left, Arya said flatly. So I drove to the hospital and checked myself in. I didn't pack properly. Didn't leave a note because I didn't know what to say. I ran. And I told myself it was to protect you, but it was also because I was terrified. Of myself. Of what I might do. Lucas remembered that night with painful clarity now, coming home to an empty house. The car gone. Victoria's phone on the counter. He'd called the police within an hour, convinced something terrible had happened. They put me in the psych ward, Victoria said. Locked doors. Supervision. Medication that made me feel like I was underwater. And slowly, so slowly, I started to get better. The intrusive thoughts decreased. The compulsions eased. I started to feel like myself again. How long? Arya asked. 6 months inpatient. Then I moved to a residential treatment facility for another 8 months. Then outpatient therapy for the next year. Victoria's voice was steady now, matter of fact. By the time I was stable enough to think about coming home, it had been almost 2 years. And you just decided not to? I drove to the house. Victoria looked at Lucas. 3 times. I would park down the street and watch. I saw you leave for work with Arya in the car seat. Saw your mother come over to babysit. Saw you come home exhausted every night. And you looked like you were managing, like you'd figured it out without me. We were surviving, Lucas said. Not managing, surviving. I didn't know that. I saw Arya laughing in the car, saw her toddling around the yard. She looked happy, healthy, and I thought... Victoria's voice broke. I thought bringing myself back into the picture would just confuse her, hurt her, that she was too young to remember me anyway, and it would be easier for everyone if I just stayed gone. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard, Arya said. Victoria actually laughed, wet and broken. Yeah, it was. So what happened after you decided to stay away? I moved across the country, got a job in tech, something I'd been interested in before but never pursued. Threw myself into work because it was the only thing that didn't hurt. Victoria looked at her hands. And I was good at it, really good. I moved up fast, made connections, started my own company. Every success felt hollow because you weren't there to share it, but it was better than the alternative, which was falling apart completely. Victoria met Arya's eyes. Work gave me purpose when I didn't think I deserved one. It gave me something to focus on besides the guilt. And I told myself that at least if I couldn't be your mother, I could be someone who did something meaningful in the world. It was a poor substitute, but it was all I had. Arya was quiet for a long moment. A family walked past with a dog, the parents laughing about something while their kids ran ahead. Normal people living normal lives. "Did you ever think about me?" Arya asked quietly. "Every single day, every hour." Victoria's voice was fierce now. "You were the first thing I thought about when I woke up and the last thing before I slept. I celebrated your birthday every year alone in my apartment. I bought you presents I could never give you. I wrote you letters I could never send." What did they say? The letters? That I was sorry. That I loved you. That I hoped you were happy and healthy and everything I couldn't be for you. Victoria pulled out her phone, scrolled through something, then held it out. "I still write them. Every year on your birthday." Arya took the phone hesitantly. Lucas couldn't see the screen from where he stood, but he watched his daughter's face as she read, watched the anger soften into something more complicated, pain and confusion, and something that might have been longing. "You wrote me 52 letters?" Arya's voice was small. 67. "I write extras sometimes. When something big happens that I wish I could tell you about." Victoria's hands twisted together. "There's one from when you won the state science fair. One from when I saw you'd made the honor roll. One from when I found out you'd started robotics club. I track everything I can and I write to you like maybe someday you'll read them and understand." Arya handed back the phone, her hand shaking. "Why are you showing me this?" "Because you asked if I thought about you, and I need you to know. The answer is always. I have always thought about you. Even when I stayed away, especially when I stayed away, you were all I thought about. But you still didn't come back." "No, I didn't." Victoria stood up, facing Arya directly. "And I can't change that. I can't give you back those years. I can't undo the hurt or the confusion or the nights you cried wondering why your mother didn't love you. Because I know you did. Your dad told me." Arya's face went red. He should have, because you need to know that was never true. Not loving you was never the problem. Loving you was the easiest thing I ever did. It was loving myself enough to believe I deserved to be in your life that I couldn't manage." Lucas felt tears on his own face now. He'd been so angry at Victoria for so long, had built up this image of her as selfish and cruel. But watching her now, broken and honest and so clearly destroyed by her own choices, he felt that anger cracking. "I don't know if I can forgive you," Arya said. "I'm not asking you to." "Then what are you asking for?" Victoria was quiet for a moment. "A chance to know you. Not as the baby I left, but as the person you are now. A chance to show you that I'm not that sick woman anymore. That I've done the work and taken the medication and gone to therapy for years to make sure I never put you or anyone else in danger again. And if I say no, then I respect that, and I leave you alone. But I'll still write you letters, and I'll still think about you every day, and if you ever change your mind, I'll be here." Arya wrapped her arms around herself, and Lucas was struck by how much she looked like Victoria in that moment. The same defensive posture, the same way of holding pain close. "I have questions," Arya said finally. "Okay. Are you married?" "No." "Do you have other kids?" "No, just you." "Why not? If you wanted to be a mom so badly, why didn't you try again?" Victoria's smile was sad. "Because I was already a mother. I just wasn't there for it. Having another child would have felt like trying to replace you. And you can't be replaced." "That's convenient." "It's true." Victoria didn't rise to the bait in Arya's voice. "I dated a few times over the years, but it never went anywhere. How could it? Hi, nice to meet you, by the way. I have a daughter I abandoned. That's not exactly first date material." "Maybe you should have tried it. Might have weeded out the jerks faster." Lucas bit back a smile despite everything. His daughter's sharp edges were showing, the defense mechanisms she'd built up over years of hurt. "You're probably right," Victoria said. "Stop doing that." "Doing what?" "Agreeing with me. Fight back. Tell me I'm being unfair. Something." "You're not being unfair. You're being honest, and you have every right to be angry at me." "I am angry." Arya's voice rose again. I'm furious. You left me and you stayed gone, and now you're standing here like you expect me to just understand and make it okay, and I can't. I know. Stop saying you know. What do you want me to say? Victoria's own voice was rising now. That I don't regret it? I regret it every day. That I don't wish I could go back and do it differently? I would give anything, everything, to go back and get help instead of running. But I can't. All I can do is stand here and take whatever you want to throw at me because I deserve it. You're right. You do deserve it. Arya stepped forward, her fists clenched. You deserve to feel like garbage. You deserve to lie awake at night wondering if your kid hates you. You deserve all of it. Arya, Lucas started, but Victoria held up a hand. She's right, Victoria said quietly. I do. Arya was crying hard now, her whole body shaking. I used to make up stories about you. In elementary school, I told kids you were a doctor working overseas, that you were too busy saving lives to come home. I made you this hero so I wouldn't have to admit that you just didn't want me. Oh, baby. Victoria took a step forward. Don't call me that. Arya backed up. You don't get to call me baby. You don't get to call me anything. Victoria stopped, her hands dropping to her sides. You're right. I'm sorry. They stood there in the cold afternoon sun, two people who shared DNA and history and a canyon of pain between them. I don't know what I'm supposed to do with this, Arya said finally. With you. With all of this information. What am I supposed to do? Whatever you need to do. Victoria's voice was gentle. If you need to yell at me more, yell. If you need space, take it. If you never want to see me again, I understand. That's not helpful. I know, but it's true. Arya looked at Lucas, her eyes desperate. Dad? Lucas crossed the distance between them and put his hands on her shoulders. What do you need right now? I don't know. That's okay. You don't have to know. Arya leaned into him, her face pressed against his chest. Lucas held her and looked at Victoria over his daughter's head. Victoria's face was wet with tears, her hands clutching her elbows like she was trying to hold herself together. Can I ask you something? Lucas said to her. Of course. Are you really better? Not just managing, actually better? Victoria nodded. I see a therapist twice a month. I'm on medication that's been stable for 8 years. I have coping mechanisms and support systems, and I know the warning signs if I start to slide. I'm not the same person I was 14 years ago. And if Arya lets you into her life, if she gives you a chance, you won't bail when it gets hard? Never. Victoria's voice was steel. I swear on everything I have, I will never leave her again. You can't promise that, Arya said into Lucas's chest. You can't promise you won't get sick again. You're right. I can't promise I won't have bad days, but I can promise I'll get help if I do. I can promise I won't run. I can promise I'll fight to stay this time. Arya pulled back from Lucas and wiped her face. I need time. Okay. Like, a lot of time to think about this, to process. Of course. And I might want to see you again, ask more questions. I don't know yet. Whatever you need, Victoria said. I'll be here. Don't say that if you don't mean it. I mean it. Victoria pulled a card from her pocket, the same one she'd given Lucas weeks ago. She held it out to Arya. My number, email. You can reach me anytime, day or night. I don't care if it's 3 a.m. If you want to talk, I'll answer. Arya took the card slowly, like it might bite her. She stared at it for a long moment. Why should I believe you? She asked quietly. Why should I believe any of this? Because I'm still here. Victoria's voice was steady. I could have stayed away. It would have been easier, safer. But I came back anyway because you deserve the truth. And because as terrifying as this is, not trying would have been worse. Arya nodded slowly, slipping the card into her pocket. I should go. Okay. Arya started to walk away, then stopped and turned back. When you left that night, did you say goodbye to me? Victoria's face crumpled. I kissed your forehead while you were sleeping, and I told you I loved you, and I said I was sorry even though you couldn't hear me. I wish I could remember that. Me too. Arya turned and walked toward the truck, her steps quick, almost running. Lucas started to follow, then paused. That was brave, he said to Victoria. What you did just now, letting her be angry, not defending yourself. It wasn't brave. It was the least I could do. Victoria wrapped her arms around herself again. How do you think she's doing? Really? I don't know. She's tough. But this is a lot. Will you? Victoria stopped, then tried again. Will you let me know if she's okay? Lucas thought about it, about all the years of silence and wondering, about the ring still on his finger and the woman standing in front of him who looked so much like the girl he'd married and so different at the same time. Yeah, he said finally. I'll let you know. Thank you. Victoria's smile was small and broken. And Lucas? Thank you for this, for letting her meet me. I know it wasn't easy. No, it wasn't. Lucas shoved his hands in his pockets. But you were right about one thing. She deserved the truth. He started to walk away. Lucas? He turned back. Did you ever… Victoria stopped like she wasn't sure she should ask. Did you ever remarry? Date anyone? Lucas looked down at his left hand, at the ring that had sat there for 14 years. No. Why not? Because I was married. He said it simply, like it was obvious. You left, but we never divorced, and I guess part of me always hoped… He stopped. That was more honesty than he'd meant to give. Hoped what? That someday there'd be an explanation that made sense. Lucas met her eyes. Turns out there was. He walked back to the truck before she could respond. Arya was already in the passenger seat, staring straight ahead. Lucas got in and started the engine, but he didn't put it in gear yet. You okay? He asked. No. Yeah, that's fair. They sat there for a moment, the engine running, warm air slowly filling the cab. I believe her, Arya said suddenly. About being sick. About the thoughts. I don't want to believe her, but I do. Why don't you want to? Because if she's telling the truth, then I spent my whole life being angry at someone who was just trying to protect me, and I don't know what to do with that. Lucas reached over and squeezed her hand. You don't have to do anything with it right now. Do you believe her? Yeah, I do. Do you forgive her? Lucas was quiet for a long moment. I don't know yet. Ask me again in a few months. Arya leaned her head against the window. She kept my picture on her desk. I know. And she wrote me letters, 67 letters. That's a lot of letters. Dad? Arya's voice was small. Yeah? Is it okay if part of me still hates her? Yeah, baby, that's okay. And is it okay if part of me wants to give her a chance? Lucas pulled out of the parking space and headed toward home. Yeah, that's okay too. Through the rearview mirror, he could see Victoria still standing by the bench, watching them drive away. She raised a hand in a small wave. Lucas didn't wave back, but he didn't look away either. That night, Lucas couldn't sleep. He lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying the afternoon over and over. Victoria's tears, Arya's anger, the raw honesty of it all. Around midnight, his phone buzzed. A text from Victoria. Is she okay? Lucas stared at the message for a long time before responding. She will be. Thank you for today, for letting me explain, for being there with her. She needed me there. I know. You're a good father, Lucas, the best she could have asked for. He didn't know how to respond to that, so he didn't, but he didn't delete the message either. Another text came through. I meant what I said. I'm not going anywhere. Whatever she needs, whenever she needs it, I'm here. She has your number. If she wants to reach out, she will. I know, but thank you anyway, for everything. Lucas set the phone down and closed his eyes. Tomorrow he'd have to help Arya process all of this. Tomorrow he'd have to figure out how to navigate having Victoria in their lives again, however peripherally. But tonight, he let himself feel something he hadn't let himself feel in 14 years. Hope. Maybe this wouldn't fix everything. Maybe Arya and Victoria would never have the relationship they should have had. Maybe the damage was too deep to ever fully heal. But maybe, just maybe, they could build something new. Something honest, something that acknowledged the past without being destroyed by it. Lucas looked at the ring on his finger. He'd taken it off a dozen times over the years, gotten as far as setting it on the bathroom counter before sliding it back on. This time he twisted it slowly, feeling the worn metal against his skin. Then he stopped. Not yet, but maybe someday. 3 days passed before Arya said anything about Victoria again. She went through the motions: school, robotics club, homework at the kitchen table while Lucas made dinner. But she was quieter than usual, more withdrawn. Lucas caught her staring at Victoria's business card twice, running her thumb over the embossed lettering like she was trying to decode something hidden there. Tuesday night, while they were washing dishes, she finally broke the silence. "Do you think she meant it, about answering if I called?" Lucas handed her a plate to dry. "Yeah, I think she did." "What if I called and she didn't answer? What if it went to voicemail? Then you'd know she lied, and you could make your decision based on that." Arya dried the plate in slow circles. "I don't know what I'd even say." "You don't have to know yet. But what if I wait too long and she thinks I don't want to talk to her and she moves on?" Lucas turned off the water and faced his daughter. "She's not going to move on, Arya. That woman has waited 14 years. She can wait a few more days. Or weeks? Or weeks? Or months? However long you need." Arya set down the plate. "I'm scared." "I know. What if I let her in and she breaks my heart again?" Lucas pulled her into a hug. "Then I'll be here to help you pick up the pieces." Same as always. They stood there in the kitchen, water dripping from Lucas's hands onto the floor, and for a moment everything felt almost normal, almost manageable. Then Arya's phone buzzed. She pulled back and checked it, her face going pale. "It's her." "Victoria?" "She sent me something." Arya held out her phone. The message was simple. "I know you need time, but I wanted you to have this." Below it was an attachment, a PDF file. Lucas watched as Arya downloaded it. The file opened to reveal a scanned letter, handwritten in neat cursive. "Dear Arya," it began. "Today you turned 1 year old, and I wasn't there to see it." "It's one of the letters," Arya whispered, "from when I was little." She scrolled down, reading silently. Lucas watched emotions flicker across her face: pain, curiosity, anger, something that might have been longing. "She wrote about my first birthday," Arya said, her voice thick. "About how she imagined what the party would be like, what kind of cake Dad would make, whether I'd cry when everyone sang." She looked up at Lucas. "Did I? Cry?" "You laughed, thought the candle was the coolest thing you'd ever seen." Arya's smile was watery. "She got it wrong then." "Yeah, she did." Another message came through, then another. Lucas watched as Victoria sent letter after letter: birthdays, Christmases, first days of school. Years of missed moments documented in careful handwriting. "Why is she sending these now?" Arya asked. "Maybe she wants you to know she really did think about you, that it wasn't just something she said." Arya stared at her phone, tears sliding down her cheeks. "There's so many." 67, she said. "No, more." Arya scrolled through the messages. "She's sending all of them, every single one." Lucas's phone buzzed. A text from Victoria to him this time. "I hope this isn't overstepping. I just wanted her to know." He typed back. "She's reading them." "Is she okay?" Lucas looked at his daughter, crying over letters from a mother she'd never known was writing to her. "Ask me later." Arya spent the next 2 hours in her room. Lucas could hear her crying through the door, but she didn't come out and he didn't push. This was something she needed to process alone. Around 10, she emerged, eyes red and puffy, phone clutched in her hand. "I want to see her again," she said. Lucas set down the book he'd been pretending to read. "Okay." "Not at the park. Somewhere else." "Where?" "Here." Arya gestured around the living room. "I want her to see where I grew up, where Dad raised me. I want her to see what she missed." Lucas felt something catch in his chest. "You sure?" "No, but I want to do it anyway." "When? This weekend?" Arya twisted her phone in her hands. "Is that too soon? Should I wait longer? Make her, I don't know, prove she's serious?" "Baby, this isn't about punishing her. It's about what you need." "What I need is to understand." Arya's voice cracked. "She wrote me 67 letters, Dad. 67. And in every single one she says she loves me. She says she's sorry. She says she wishes things were different. And I need to know if that's real or if it's just guilt talking. There's only one way to find out." "I know." Arya took a deep breath. "Will you text her? Ask if she can come Saturday afternoon?" You don't want to ask her yourself? Not yet. I'm not ready to talk to her directly yet. Lucas pulled out his phone. Okay, I'll ask. The response came within seconds. Yes, absolutely. What time? 2 o'clock work? Lucas asked Arya. She nodded. 2 o'clock, Lucas texted back. And Victoria? This is Arya's house, her space. You follow her lead. I understand. Thank you, Lucas, for giving me another chance. He showed Arya the response. She read it twice, then handed back his phone. I'm going to bed, she said. You okay? I don't know. Ask me on Sunday. The next 3 days were a blur of nervous energy. Arya cleaned her room twice, rearranged her bookshelf, and changed her outfit 4 times Saturday morning before settling on jeans and a sweater. Lucas vacuumed, did laundry, and tried not to think too hard about the fact that his ex-wife, his technically still wife, he supposed, was about to see the home he'd built without her. Janet called Friday night. I heard Victoria's coming to the house, she said without preamble. How did you? Arya told you? She needed someone to talk to who wasn't you. Don't take it personally. Janet's voice was tight. Are you sure this is a good idea? No, but Arya wants it. And what do you want? Lucas was quiet for a moment. I want my daughter to stop hurting. If this helps, then I'm for it. If it makes things worse, then we'll deal with it. You're too forgiving, Lucas. You always have been. Maybe, or maybe I'm just tired of being angry. Anger is what protects you. It's also what keeps you stuck. Lucas sighed. I'm not saying I forgive her, Mom. I'm not saying everything's fine, but I'm saying maybe there's a middle ground between hating her forever and pretending nothing happened. Janet was quiet for a long moment. If she hurts either of you again, I will make her regret it, billionaire or not. I know you will. Good. Now put Arya on. I want to talk to my granddaughter. Saturday afternoon arrived too fast and too slow at the same time. At 1:45, Arya was pacing the living room, checking her phone every 30 seconds. She's going to be early, Arya said. Or late, which would be worse. Early, Lucas said. Definitely early. Why? Because then we'd have to make awkward small talk while we wait for 2 o'clock. Oh no, you're right. I didn't think of that. Arya checked her phone again. What if she brings presents, like expensive presents, to try to buy my affection? Then you politely decline them. What if she tries to hug me? You set whatever boundaries you need. What if I want to hug her, but I'm also mad at her and it's confusing? Lucas crossed the room and put his hands on Arya's shoulders. Then it's confusing. That's okay. You're allowed to have complicated feelings. I hate complicated feelings. Yeah, me too. At exactly 2 o'clock, a car pulled up outside. Not a limo or some flashy sports car, just a regular sedan. Victoria got out, wearing jeans and a simple blue shirt, her hair down. She looked nervous, clutching a small bag. She brought something, Arya said, peering through the window. Want me to get the door? No, I'll do it. Arya walked to the door like she was approaching a guillotine. She took a deep breath, then opened it before Victoria could knock. Victoria stood on the porch, her hand raised to ring the doorbell. They stared at each other for a long moment. Hi, Victoria said finally. It's. Arya stepped back. Come in. Victoria entered slowly, taking in everything. The worn couch where Lucas and Arya watched movies, the bookshelf crammed with Arya's science fair trophies and participation medals, the photos covering the walls. Her eyes lingered on a picture of Arya at age 7, gap-toothed and grinning, holding up a first-place ribbon from the school science fair. Your house is lovely, Victoria said. It's just a house. Arya crossed her arms. What's in the bag? Victoria held it up. Photo albums from before I left. I thought, if you wanted, you might want to see pictures of us together, when you were a baby. Arya's expression flickered. Oh. I can leave them with you. You don't have to look at them now, or ever, whatever you want. Can I see? Victoria set the bag on the coffee table and pulled out 3 albums. They were old, the kind with actual printed photos inside, not digital. Arya sat down on the couch and opened the first one. Lucas watched from the doorway as his daughter saw herself as an infant, cradled in Victoria's arms. Victoria looking exhausted but happy in a hospital gown. Lucas standing next to the bed, younger and terrified, holding his newborn daughter like she might break. "I was so small," Arya whispered. 5 pounds, 6 ounces, Victoria said. "You were 3 weeks early. Scared us half to death." Arya turned the page. More photos. Victoria feeding Arya a bottle, changing a diaper, giving her a bath. In every picture, Victoria was looking at the baby with such intense love it was almost painful to see. "You looked happy," Arya said. "I was, in those moments." Victoria sat down on the other end of the couch, keeping distance between them. The fear hadn't started yet. That came later. Arya flipped through more pages. There was one of the 3 of them together. Lucas holding Arya while Victoria leaned against his shoulder, all of them squeezed into the frame of a selfie taken in their old apartment. "We look like a family," Arya said quietly. "We were a family." Victoria's voice was thick. "And then I broke it." Arya closed the album and looked at Victoria directly. "Why didn't you take these with you? When you left?" "I took one photo, the one I kept on my desk. But I left the albums because—" Victoria stopped, collecting herself. "Because I thought you and your dad should have them. So you'd know I was real, that we were real. Dad never showed them to me." Lucas cleared his throat. "I put them in storage. I couldn't. It was too hard to look at them." "Can I keep these?" Arya asked Victoria. "The albums?" "They're yours. They always were." Arya set the albums aside carefully and stood up. "You want to see my room?" Victoria looked startled. "If you want to show me." "Come on." Lucas stayed downstairs while Arya led Victoria up to her room. He could hear their voices. Arya explaining her robotics projects, Victoria asking questions about her science fair wins. It sounded almost normal, almost like a mother and daughter having a regular conversation. He pulled out his phone and texted his sister Maya. "Victoria's here at the house." Maya's response was immediate. "And?" "And I don't know yet. Arya's showing her around." "How are you holding up?" Lucas looked around the living room he'd built for his daughter, the life he'd created without Victoria. "Better than I thought I would." 20 minutes later, Arya and Victoria came back downstairs. Arya looked calmer, less defensive. Victoria's eyes were red. "Your daughter is remarkable," Victoria said to Lucas. "I know. She showed me her robotics projects, her science fair presentations, the essay she wrote that won the state competition." Victoria's voice cracked. "You've done an incredible job raising her." "We did it together," Arya said quietly. "Dad and me. Grandma helped too. And my teachers, and my robotics coach. It wasn't just Dad." "But he was there every day," Victoria said. "He showed up. That's what matters." They stood there in awkward silence for a moment. Then Arya said, "Do you want some coffee or something?" Yes, that would be nice." Lucas went to the kitchen to make coffee while Arya and Victoria sat at the dining table. He could hear them talking, Arya's voice still guarded but less hostile than before. "What's it like?" Arya was asking. "Running a company?" "Stressful, rewarding, lonely sometimes." Victoria paused. "I have 300 employees who depend on me, and I still feel like I'm pretending to know what I'm doing half the time." "Really? But you're so successful." "Success doesn't mean you stop doubting yourself. It just means you get better at hiding it." Lucas brought out 3 mugs of coffee. Victoria took hers with a small smile of thanks. "Can I ask you something?" Arya said. "And you have to be honest." "Okay." "Did you ever think about coming back? Before now, I mean. Did you ever get close?" Victoria wrapped her hands around the mug. "Yes, multiple times. I bought plane tickets twice and couldn't get on the flight. I wrote emails I never sent. I drove to your school once and sat in the parking lot for an hour, trying to work up the courage to go inside." "When was that?" "Your 8th grade orientation. I saw you walk in with your dad. You were wearing a purple backpack and you looked so confident, so sure of yourself. And I thought, she doesn't need me. Look at how well she's doing without me." "That's stupid," Arya said, but there was less bite in it than before. "Of course I needed you. Every kid needs their mom." "I know that now. But at the time I convinced myself that leaving was the right choice, that I was protecting you from me." "You weren't protecting me. You were protecting yourself from failing again. Victoria flinched, but she nodded. You're right, and I'm sorry. They drank their coffee in silence for a moment. Lucas watched them, these two people who should have known each other but didn't, trying to find some kind of common ground. I read all the letters, Arya said finally. Every single one. You didn't have to. I wanted to. Arya set down her mug. In the letter for my 7th birthday, you wrote about hoping I'd like science class. You said you loved science when you were my age. I did. Chemistry especially. Me too. Arya's voice was soft. I won the science fair that year with a project on chemical reactions. Dad helped me build the display board. I saw the pictures online. The local paper did a story. You've been stalking me online? Aggressively, Victoria admitted. Every school website, every local news story, every public achievement. I have a folder on my computer with hundreds of screenshots. That's kind of creepy. I know. But also kind of sweet. Arya looked down at her hands. I tried to find you online, too, when I was 11. I Googled Victoria Bennett and found nothing. Didn't know you'd changed back to your maiden name. You looked for me? I wanted to see if you were dead or just gone. Turns out you were neither. You were just busy being successful. The words hung in the air. Victoria's face crumpled. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry, Arya, for all of it, for leaving, for staying gone, for building a life that didn't include you. I'm sorry. I know you are. Arya's voice was steady. But sorry doesn't fix it. I know. So what happens now? Victoria looked helpless. I don't know. Whatever you want. That's not an answer. It's the only answer I have. This is your life, Arya. You get to decide if there's room in it for me. Arya was quiet for a long time. Lucas wanted to intervene, to help somehow, but this wasn't his conversation. This was between them. I don't forgive you, Arya said finally. Not yet. Maybe not ever. I don't know. Okay. But I want... Arya's voice caught. I want to try. To get to know you. To see if we can... I don't know what. Build something, maybe. Victoria's hands were shaking. Are you sure? No, but I'm doing it anyway. Arya looked at Lucas. Is that okay? You don't need my permission, baby. I kind of do, though. Because this affects you, too. Lucas looked at Victoria, at this woman who'd broken his heart and disappeared, and now sat in his kitchen asking for a second chance she didn't deserve but maybe needed anyway. If this is what you want, he said to Arya, then I support it. But we do this slow and careful, and if it's too much at any point, we stop. Okay, Arya turned back to Victoria. Rules. We need rules. Okay. First, you don't get to just be my mom. You have to earn it. That means showing up, consistently, not just when it's convenient. I can do that. Second, no more secrets, no more hiding. If you're struggling, you tell someone. You don't just disappear again. I promise. Third, Arya's voice got quieter. You don't get to erase the past 14 years. Dad raised me. He's my parent. I don't know what you are yet, but you're not my parent. Not yet. Victoria nodded, tears streaming down her face. That's fair. And fourth, you have to be honest, always. Even when it's hard. Even when you think it might hurt me. I'm done with people protecting me from the truth. I can do that too. Okay. Arya took a shaky breath. Then I guess we can try this. Victoria stood up like she wanted to hug Arya, then stopped herself. Thank you for giving me a chance. I know I don't deserve it. You don't. Arya stood too. But maybe none of us deserve the chances we get. Maybe we just have to try to be worthy of them. Lucas felt something break open in his chest. His daughter, wise beyond her years, offering grace she'd earned the right not to give. Victoria left an hour later after exchanging phone numbers with Arya and making plans to meet for coffee the following weekend. Just coffee, just talking. Small steps. After she was gone, Lucas and Arya sat on the couch together, exhausted. You did good today, Lucas said. Did I? I feel like I maybe made a huge mistake. Maybe you did, or maybe you made a brave choice. Time will tell. Arya leaned her head on his shoulder. I'm still mad at her. You're allowed to be. But I also kind of want to know her. Is that weird? No, baby, that's human. They sat in silence for a while. Then Arya said, Dad, thank you. For what? For being there. Always. For not leaving even when it was hard. For being enough even when I told myself I needed more. Her voice cracked. You were always enough. Lucas pulled her close and let himself cry for the first time since Victoria had walked back into their lives. Relief and grief and something that might have been hope all tangled together. The next few months were strange and messy and nothing like a movie. Victoria came for coffee on weekends, always on time, always where she said she'd be. She and Arya talked about science, about school, about carefully neutral topics that didn't touch too deep. Sometimes it went well. Sometimes Arya would text Victoria a picture of a robotics project, and Victoria would respond with encouragement and genuine interest. Sometimes it went badly. Once, Arya got mad about something small, Victoria being 10 minutes late because of traffic, and it spiraled into a fight about trust and abandonment that ended with Arya crying and Victoria apologizing and both of them exhausted. But Victoria kept showing up. Week after week, month after month, she showed up. She came to Arya's robotics competition and sat in the audience with Lucas and Janet, cheering when Arya's team won third place. Janet barely spoke to her, but she didn't leave either. She attended Arya's school awards ceremony and cried when Arya accepted the science department's highest honor. Lucas watched Victoria wipe her eyes and felt something in him soften despite himself. She sent Arya articles about colleges with good engineering programs. She helped proofread an essay for a scholarship application. She learned Arya's schedule and never called during homework time or robotics practice. Small things. Consistent things. One Saturday, 6 months after that first meeting in the park, Victoria showed up with takeout from Arya's favorite Thai restaurant. I thought we could have lunch together, she said. If that's okay, both of you. Lucas looked at Arya, who shrugged. Sure. They sat around the dining table, the three of them together for the first time since Arya was 6 months old. It was awkward at first, conversation stilted and careful. But then Arya made a joke about her chemistry teacher, and Victoria laughed, and suddenly it was almost easy. This is weird, Arya said, looking between them. The three of us together. It's weird, right? Yeah, Victoria said. It is. But not bad weird, Lucas added. No, Arya agreed. Not bad weird. After lunch, Victoria helped clean up while Arya went to her room to finish homework. Lucas found himself alone in the kitchen with his ex-wife, both of them washing dishes like they'd done 1,000 times in another life. She's opening up more, Victoria said quietly. She told me about the boy she likes at school, and about the fight she had with her best friend. Yeah, she's starting to trust you. I know, and it terrifies me. What if I mess this up? Lucas handed her a plate to dry. You probably will. At some point, we all mess up. That's not comforting. It's not meant to be, it's just true. He paused. But you've been showing up. That's what matters. Not being perfect. Just being present. Victoria dried the plate in silence for a moment. I see you still wear your ring. Lucas looked down at his left hand. Yeah. Why? Honestly, I don't know anymore. A habit, maybe. Or he stopped. Or what? Or maybe I wasn't ready to close that door, even after everything. And now? Lucas thought about it. About the past 6 months of watching Victoria prove herself. Of seeing Arya slowly, carefully let her in. Of the way his anger had dulled into something less sharp. I don't know, he said honestly. Ask me again in a year. That night after Victoria left and Arya was asleep, Lucas sat on the back porch with a beer and his phone. He scrolled through old photos, him and Victoria on their wedding day, young and broke and ridiculously happy. Victoria pregnant, glowing. The three of them in the hospital, brand new and terrified. He could have deleted these years ago, but he'd kept them. A text came through. Victoria. Thank you for today, for letting me be part of lunch, part of your lives. It meant everything. Lucas stared at the message for a long time. Then he typed, You're welcome. Same time next week? Really? Yeah, Arya likes the Thai place. Lucas? Yeah? Do you think someday you might be able to forgive me? Lucas looked at the ring on his finger, at the photos on his phone, at the house he'd built and the daughter he'd raised and the life he'd made from the wreckage she'd left behind. I'm working on it, he typed back. That's more than I deserve. Maybe. But Arya's right. Maybe none of us deserve the chances we get. He set down the phone and twisted the ring slowly. Not taking it off. Not yet. But maybe someday. A year later, Lucas stood in the back of the auditorium watching his daughter accept her high school's highest academic honor. She'd tested into advanced classes, won the state science fair, and secured a full scholarship to MIT. Victoria sat 2 rows ahead of him next to Janet, who'd slowly, grudgingly, started accepting Victoria's presence in their lives. Not forgiving, not forgetting, but accepting. After the ceremony, they all went out for dinner. The 4 of them, Lucas, Arya, Victoria, and Janet, crammed into a booth at a diner Arya had loved since she was 6. To Arya, Victoria said, raising her glass of water, the smartest, strongest, most incredible young woman I know. Hear, hear, Janet added, though her voice was stiff. To Arya, Lucas echoed. They clinked glasses. Arya blushed and mumbled something about it being no big deal. It's a huge deal, Victoria insisted. MIT, Arya, that's amazing. Dad helped me with the application essays. And you did all the work, Lucas said firmly. This is your achievement. Under the table, Arya reached over and squeezed Lucas's hand. Her other hand, he noticed, rested near Victoria's on the table. Not touching, but close. After dinner, Victoria walked them to the parking lot. I'm really proud of you, she said to Arya. I hope you know that. I know. Arya shifted on her feet. And I'm glad you were there today. At the ceremony. Me too. They stood there awkwardly for a moment. Then Arya stepped forward and hugged Victoria quickly before pulling back. Don't make it weird, Arya said, but she was smiling. Wouldn't dream of it. Victoria's eyes were wet. Text me when you get home? I will. Victoria turned to Lucas. Thank you for everything, for letting me back in, for not giving up on the possibility that this could work. It's not perfect, Lucas said. No, but it's real, and that's better. Lucas nodded. He still didn't know if he'd ever fully forgive her. But he was starting to understand that maybe forgiveness wasn't a destination. Maybe it was a process, and maybe being willing to try was enough. On the drive home, Arya was quiet, staring out the window. You okay? Lucas asked. Yeah, just thinking. About? About how weird it is that she's been back in our lives for a year and it's starting to feel almost normal, like maybe she was always supposed to be part of this. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? I don't know yet. Arya looked at him. Is it okay that I don't know? Yeah, baby, that's okay. When they got home, Arya headed straight to her room. Lucas was about to follow when his phone buzzed. Victoria. I know this might be pushing it, but I wanted to ask something. What? Arya's graduation is in 3 months. I'd like to throw her a party. Nothing huge, just family and close friends. If that's okay with you. Lucas sat down on the couch, suddenly exhausted. A party. Victoria wanted to throw Arya a graduation party. A year ago, he would have said no immediately, would have seen it as Victoria trying to buy her way back into Arya's life, trying to make up for lost time with grand gestures. But now? Now he knew Victoria well enough to know that wasn't what this was. This was a mother wanting to celebrate her daughter. Simple as that. Let me talk to Arya, he typed back. If she wants it, I'm okay with it. Thank you. Lucas went upstairs and knocked on Arya's door. Come in. She was sitting on her bed with one of the photo albums Victoria had given her, looking at pictures of herself as a baby. Victoria wants to throw you a graduation party, Lucas said. Arya looked up. Really? If you want one. Do you think she'd be weird about it? Like make it all about her feeling guilty? I think she'd try really hard to make it about you. And if it got weird, we'd shut it down. Arya went back to looking at the photos. Okay, yeah, tell her okay. You sure? No, but I'm doing it anyway. She smiled, small and uncertain. That's kind of our thing now, right? Doing things we're not sure about and hoping they work out. Lucas sat down next to her on the bed. When did you get so wise? I learned from the best. Arya leaned her head on his shoulder. Dad, can I ask you something? Always. Do you still love her, Victoria? Lucas went very still. Why are you asking? Because I see the way you look at her sometimes. Like you're trying to figure something out. And I need to know if you're okay. With all this. Lucas was quiet for a long time. I don't know if I still love her, or if I ever stopped, or if what I feel now is love, or just memory of love. It's complicated. That's okay. Complicated is okay. Yeah. Lucas kissed the top of her head. It is. 3 months later, they gathered in Victoria's backyard for Arya's graduation party. It wasn't huge, just family and Arya's closest friends, maybe 30 people total. Victoria had hired a caterer but kept the decorations simple. Photos of Arya through the years, a banner congratulating her, tables of food. Lucas stood on the deck watching Arya laugh with her friends, Victoria hovering nearby but not intrusive, and felt something settle in his chest. This was it. This was what healing looked like. Not perfect, not easy, but real. Janet appeared next to him. She did good, she said grudgingly, gesturing at Victoria. With the party. Yeah, she did. I still don't forgive her. I know, Mom. But I can see she's trying. That's something. Lucas smiled. Coming from Janet, that was practically a glowing endorsement. Later, when most of the guests had left, Lucas found himself alone with Victoria by the garden. Thank you, she said, for letting me do this, for trusting me with it. You earned it. Did I? Victoria looked at him with those same brown eyes that used to undo him completely. I feel like I'm constantly trying to make up for the past and never quite getting there. Maybe that's the point. Maybe you're not supposed to make up for it. Maybe you're just supposed to do better going forward. Is that what you're doing? With me? Lucas thought about the ring he'd finally taken off 2 months ago. It sat in a drawer now, a piece of history he wasn't ready to throw away but didn't need to carry anymore. Yeah, he said. I think it is. So where does that leave us? I don't know. Friends? Co-parents? People who used to be married and are trying to figure out how to exist in the same space without destroying each other? Victoria laughed, soft and sad. That's quite a title. It's honest, though. Yeah, it is. She was quiet for a moment. For what it's worth, I think you're the best man I ever knew, and I'm sorry I wasn't strong enough to stay when you needed me. You were sick. I was, but I also made choices, and I have to live with that. Lucas looked across the yard at Arya, surrounded by friends, laughing at something someone said. Happy. Whole, despite everything. We all made choices, he said. We're all living with them. The party wound down as the sun set. Arya came over to say goodbye to Victoria, and Lucas watched as his daughter hugged the woman who'd given birth to her but hadn't raised her. It wasn't a perfect hug. It was still a little awkward, a little uncertain. But it was real. On the drive home, Arya was quiet again. You okay? Lucas asked. Yeah, that was nice, having her there, having everyone there together. Yeah, it was. Dad, do you think we're going to be okay? All of us? Lucas reached over and squeezed her hand. Yeah, baby, I think we are. And for the first time in 14 years, he actually believed it. 6 months after that, Lucas sat across from Victoria in the same cafe where this had all started. It had become their place, neutral ground where they met once a month to talk about Arya, about logistics, about the strange new normal they were building. She's doing well at MIT, Victoria said. I talked to her yesterday. She loves her classes. I know. She tells me everything. Lucas smiled. Well, most things. I'm sure there's some stuff she keeps to herself. As she should. She's 18. She's allowed to have her own life. They drank their coffee in comfortable silence. A year and a half ago, this would have been impossible. Now it was almost easy. Can I tell you something? Victoria said. Sure. I'm dating someone. Lucas felt something twist in his chest. Not jealousy exactly, but something. Yeah? His name is David. He's a teacher. We met at a fundraiser for education nonprofits. Victoria looked nervous. I wanted you to know before I told Arya, in case it's weird. It's not weird. Feels a little weird. Okay, maybe a little weird. Lucas smiled. But good weird. You deserve to be happy. So do you. Victoria looked at his left hand, bare now, the ring finally put away. Have you thought about dating? Some. Haven't actually done anything about it yet. Why not? Lucas thought about it. I guess I was waiting. For what? To be ready. To be done being angry, I guess. And I think I'm finally there. Victoria's eyes were soft. I'm glad. You deserve someone who shows up for you, who stays. Yeah, I do. They sat there for a moment, two people who used to be in love and now were something else, something undefined but okay. We did all right, didn't we? Victoria said quietly, with Arya, despite everything. You did all right showing back up, but I did all right raising her. Lucas said it gently, but firmly. Those aren't the same thing. You're right. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry, just don't forget. I was there when you weren't. That matters. It does. You're right. Victoria nodded. And Lucas? Thank you for letting me back in, for giving me the chance to know her. I know I didn't deserve it. No. But she deserved to have all the facts and to make her own choice. Lucas stood up, preparing to leave. We're okay, Victoria. We're never going to be what we were. But we're okay. Yeah, we are. Lucas walked out of the cafe into the cool autumn air and pulled out his phone. He had a text from a woman he'd met at Arya's robotics competition. Another parent, friendly and warm and easy to talk to. She'd asked him to coffee 3 times now, and he'd deflected each time. He typed out a message. Sorry for the delay. Coffee this weekend sounds great. Her response came within minutes. Finally, I was starting to think you were avoiding me. Lucas smiled and typed back. Not anymore. That weekend, he went on his first date in 15 years. It was awkward and strange, and he spent half of it talking about Arya, but it was also nice, normal. Afterward, he texted Arya to tell her about it. Her response? Finally. I've been waiting for you to move on. You don't mind? Dad, you've spent my entire life putting me first. It's time you put yourself first for once. Plus, Victoria's dating someone, so it's only fair. Lucas stared at that message for a long time. His daughter, giving him permission to be happy. His daughter, who'd survived abandonment and confusion and 14 years of questions, telling him it was okay to move forward. I love you, kiddo, he texted back. Love you too. Now go plan a second date and stop texting me. I'm trying to study. Lucas laughed and put his phone away. A year and a half ago, he'd sat in a cafe across from a woman he hadn't seen in a decade, trying to understand how his life had fallen apart. Now he was sitting in his truck planning a second date, texting his daughter who was thriving at MIT, and feeling something he hadn't felt in 14 years. Hope. Real, genuine hope that the future could be better than the past. Not because everything was fixed, not because the pain was erased, but because they'd all survived it. And survival, Lucas was learning, was its own kind of victory. He started the truck and headed home, to the house he'd built, the life he'd made, the future he was finally ready to embrace. And for the first time since Victoria had walked out that door 14 years ago, Lucas Bennett felt whole. Not because she'd come back, but because he'd learned that he'd been whole all along. He just hadn't known it yet. Some people lose their way in the dark, and some people spend years finding it again. And some people build something new from the wreckage, something honest, something real, something that proves that broken things can be mended, even if they never look quite the same. And maybe that's enough. Maybe that's everything.